This is Brent Richardson, and welcome to the Business Minutia Podcast, where our focus is on the details of business that are often passed over by traditional classes and leadership training. We focus on the stories of real people who have tried, failed, and learned through their experiences and are willing to share their lessons with others. All right, Jamie, this week we are talking about pursuing feedback and the value of pursuing feedback. Do you remember the time when you actually saw the value in it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, when I was working at an international nonprofit, and I remember asking why I wasn't moving up as quickly as I thought I would, and it was because of the just that I was always putting in my own label. Just a mom, just a this, just a this. And everybody has, the justs in their life.
Downplaying your own skills.
Absolutely. And what about you, Brent?
Well, when I remember getting feedback that was partially true, and I look back at it now and I go, yeah, okay, that was just a very narrow view. But I actually, coming out of college, and I went to, at the time I was flying out of College Station, Texas, as I'm an A&M graduate. Leaving College Station, Texas was 80 degrees, and I had my suit on and everything, and I didn't travel. I was a world traveler. I just got on a plane for maybe the third time in my life and flew to New Hampshire and went and interviewed. And it snowed something like, I don't know, 1.5 feet in a half a day. It was ridiculous. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know why I came up here. This is a terrible decision. Well, I think that went both ways. They also told me, you don't have leadership potential. That was something that the feedback that I got. The worst part of it is in all that snow, when I went to leave, I had just gotten my Aggie ring, so my class ring was such a big deal for Aggies.
Huge deal.
So I just got my ring, and I was raking off snow off the white rental car. I have to search the parking lot for the thing, and I'm still in my jacket. I'm not dressed appropriately because I'm from Texas. Come on, man, I don't know any better. And I go to get all the snow off, and I hear ding. And my ring had come off in the snow and vanished into this foot of snow in a parking lot. So then I sat out there to add insult to injury, just digging through the snow for the next hour.
But did you find it?
I did somehow, by chance, when I was giving up, came across that ring, and it still has scuff marks on it today from being tossed across a parking lot.
It has story marks.
And it does in New Hampshire. And then to get the feedback as well. I was glad that I got the feedback. Today I am. At the time, I thought, you suckers, you don't know. And then I thought, but I embraced it too much. I was like, yeah, that's right. Their feedback was that I was too technical and not a leader.
You internalized it.
And I internalized it, and I was like, oh, they're right. That's who I am now. Now, if I look back at this, I go, oh, man, you need a lot of data points. Don't get one person's opinion on who you are. You need to get, and that's really what this episode is about. So we have Rodney Miranda with us this week. Rodney has managed multiple different engineering functions. He has worked on the front end of business, on the back end of business, directly with customers. He's managed people across the globe, so tons of experience managing people, managing big projects, managing really difficult customers. And so he's one of the things that spiked out to me from the times I've worked with him was he does a really good job at pursuing feedback. I never had to go and give Rodney feedback. It was always something he was coming to me saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
That is a hard skill to master.
It is, and very few people get that, right? And so that, when I was thinking about pursuing feedback, so important, who's really good at this? Immediately I think of Rodney, and I go, okay, this is the reason why this guy has been so successful, is his ability to go pursue that feedback.
Perfect.
Enjoy, folks.
Everybody has their own kind of perception. Everybody has their own thoughts on the world that we're in. And, you only have your own, obviously, because, that's what you live and breathe every day. And trying to understand other people's points of view and what their perception is can only make you stronger from a sense of understanding where folks are coming from. How do I build a bridge kind of between those me and the other person, or between other folks like that. So just kind of the better you have a view from the entire kind of sense of what's going on, only will help you kind of navigate situations better, will help you understand where folks are coming from, kind of just get you a better lay of the land to make moves or to move off of that.
Sure. Did you was there a thing that triggered it to where like a moment in time you're like, oh man, I should care a little bit about what other people think and how they perceive me?
So I mean, I think as humans, we all kind of care what other people think, for the most part, at least. Even from a young age, you care what your parents think, you care what your friends think, etc. But then when you kind of get into the workplace, it kind of shifts because the folks that you interact with, they aren't your family. They may or may not care about you, but you should still kind of care about what they think. And I remember my first year in industry, I had my one-on-one yearly review with my manager, and it went well. And she gave me a lot of good feedback. She gave me stuff that I'm doing well at. She gave me a few critiques, and I said, okay, that's fair. But then she challenged me. She said, hey, go talk to a few of the other folks that you work with and get their take as well. And so I went out and did that. And one of the engineering managers that I worked with, his feedback was nowhere near what I thought he was going to tell me. And at that time, I was like, "Oh, this is nonsense. I can't believe this. This isn't." He's trying to tear me down. He's trying to not give me accurate feedback. But then he followed it up with a bunch of examples, and I said, "Okay, maybe I am only looking at it through my lens. Let me look at it from his side." And once I kind of shifted my viewpoint over to kind of how he sees the world, I go, okay, I am kind of getting in the way in some of the things that he's trying to do. Yeah. I am slowing him down. Some of the arguments I'm making may be beneficial to me, but it may be, counterproductive for the entire team. And kind of once I saw that was me going, the light bulb kind of went off in my head to say, well, okay, he has his own view here. I wonder what the other folks think.
Right.
So then I kind of followed that up and went to a few others, and he was obviously the one that kind of surprised me the most. But then once I kind of level set there, the others, they had good feedback as well. Yeah. And it was really kind of from that point on that I said, okay, I need to really kind of keep an eye on this. I need to make sure I understand where folks are coming from. And it's definitely been beneficial.
It's almost like I notice now when I'm in a meeting and not anticipating feedback, I get the similar feeling than I did when I first started, and I knew I was getting feedback. There's almost like this. There's like an adrenaline rush. There's like your heart rate picks up. You're sweating a little bit. It's almost like you're like that feeling when you're a kid when you knew you were about to get in a fight. There's like this, or the equivalent to that if I'm about to take on a really tough part of the mountain bike trail. There's almost like this sensation that kicks in, and you're like. And a lot of people, I think, early in my career, I was like, I need to avoid this. There's like a fear thing that kicks in. It's like, stay away from this. Once I realized, oh, that didn't kill me. Actually, I'm getting stronger from this. Then you realize when that fear, when that sensation starts to kick in, you're like, no, this is good. Calm down, relax, pursue this. Let's get more. Right. That's kind of the way I see it now. And I still feel on occasion when I'm not expecting it, I'll still feel that sensation kind of kick in and be like, no, relax, calm down, slow your heart rate.
Oh, yeah. Because you don't know what they're going to say. No. You don't know what feedback they're going to give you.
It always stings, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe. Sometimes it's good feedback, and then you're like, okay, this is good. This makes me happy. But
the negative feedback.
You always fear the worst there, right?
Yeah,
so you kind of anticipate them.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to say something bad here, and then what am I going to say?
So
I can definitely understand how the anxiety or the fear would kick in.
Yeah. And I say that to say, I've been doing this 20 years. It still feels about the same. Like it still stings. I've used the analogy of it's like going to the doctor for a shot. Like, I years ago when my kids were younger, I would we're going to get a shot together, and I'd find they found something they'd give me a shot for, and we'd do it together. And as soon as I'd get one, I'd be like, "Dang, stop, man! That actually hurts. Still stings.
It doesn't get any easier.
But hopefully, you're getting a shot for a reason that's benefiting you, so it's a positive thing. So let's get into feedback a little bit. Why is it important? Why is it something that Joe Schmo or Jane Doe that just started out there in corporate America or has just started a small company or even as a small business owner? Why should they be pursuing feedback?
Well, I mean, so it really is. It's going to help you grow. It helps you show why your kind of viewpoint may not be totally accurate, right? Again, we all have our own biases. We all have our own thought process, etc. And if you just focus on yourself and your own viewpoints, you're kind of missing, the rest of the puzzle there. So understanding what other people think, other folks, the way they perceive the environment or the situation or the way that the issue is being handled, only makes you stronger.
Now, you've mentioned to me before, like, and when we've talked about this, like, how you perceive yourself is one thing, and then how you think other people perceive you is different, and then the reality of how people perceive you is the part you're really trying to uncover.
Yeah, there's a few different levels of perception. You perceive yourself in a certain way. You perceive others a certain way. Others perceive you a certain way. And others perceive themselves a certain way, right? So there's all these, you have inwards and outwards perception, etc. So yeah, trying to understand all those is ultimately what I try to do.
I think that's also really highlights the value of diversity. Or the first time I realized, I think, when I first started and we hear people talk about diversity and I would think, yeah, that's the thing that I have to say. But I don't know that I really cared, or just, it wasn't something that I saw value to or really cared tremendously about. And then when I started to realize the significance of going and seeing other people's perspectives, and their worldview was very different from mine, and that I would hear their feedback and I'd be like, that's interesting. I never saw myself in that way. And now I look at it and be like, well, that's because they come in with a completely different perspective than mine. And if I only attack things from my perspective, I'm missing out on all this, right? Yep. And so that's why we value diversity in a lot of the companies. And you see people talking about that. It's not just talk because we're afraid of what the government's going to do in terms of who we hire and who we don't. It's because there's a lot of value in getting different perspectives and on things to make it a well-rounded idea or well-rounded solution. So that's when I think diversity became something I go, okay, this is really significant.
Absolutely. And I mean, you could draw an analogy to that of, a football team, right? If you were to have a whole entire team of quarterbacks or an entire team of, offensive linemen, good luck winning a game, right? Each person kind of has their own role, their job that they perform, and they're really good at it. Yeah. And when you build a team that is diverse and has the right skill set, and they all complement one another, that's when you get a highly functional team that can really go out and accomplish goals.
So I'm a brand new person off in a company out there somewhere getting started. I've been there maybe 6 months to a year. I've maybe had a few contributions. I know enough to know a few people to go talk to, and maybe I've got a couple of mentors and buddies that I can connect with. And I'm starting to get this concept that I really would like to know how I'm perceived. How do I go about doing that?
Well, you could obviously, start with your manager, your boss, et cetera. They'll give you feedback. They'll, grow you like that. But again, that's only one piece of the puzzle. So if you do have a relationship with, a coworker or, another manager that you interact with quite often, just, be honest with them. Say, hey, I'd like to set up, 15 minutes. 30 minutes to go talk to you about, kind of what's your perception on what I'm doing? Do you see opportunities for improvement? And, anyone will give you advice. So if you're going to offer advice, they're going to be more than willing to kind of tell it to you. But, you have to kind of go in with, open arms and say, hey, look, I'm here for your constructive feedback. So, please, tell me your honesty and give me that constructive feedback so I can kind of grow from it.
Are there people are there folks they should talk to versus who they shouldn't in terms of, is there any kind of filtering there in terms of where are the best spots for them to go to get that kind of feedback? Because they could talk to anybody and get feedback, which, that's a separate good point that we'll get to in a second, which is what happens when you get feedback that you're not 100% sure this really lands and fits with you. But where are the spots that they'd be like, this is where you should focus?
So I think if you wanted to focus at a certain spot first or early on, it definitely needs to be with the folks that you know, the folks that know you, and they feel comfortable giving you feedback.
Yeah.
If you were to go to Joe off the street or someone that you've only had one meeting with or one interaction with, and you try to go ask for feedback, they're going to say this is a trap. What is this?
Right. Or I don't like your green shirt. Right?
Yeah,
that's okay.
Who knows, right? So definitely,
because they don't know you that well. I just know what they see right now.
Right. So definitely start with the folks that you do have a relationship with, that you have worked with quite often, and kind of start there for sure.
What about what kind of so when you get into a mode, you're like, okay, I want to go see what people think about a particular, because you do this. You will say, I've seen you do this. We're like, all right, there's this thing that you're working on, and you want to see how it's perceived. You'll go and get kind of a swath of various different folks' thoughts and feedback on it. You won't go to one particular person, because I know we'll be talking about it. I go, well, it'd be good to know about this. You'd be like, well, I talked to these people, and these people. I'm like, whoa, okay, so you're already that's where it triggered me, is you actively go pursue this. So there is a process that you go through that you like. These are the people that, and it seems like it's the people who are the influencers in that area. People that do care about whatever that project is or whatever the thing is you're working on. So identification of who those influential people are in that realm and how they perceive either a project or you specifically.
Yeah, I mean, so you do have your influencers, you have your experts. Starting with those folks is definitely a smart move. And then trying to not go to the same person or the same type of person if they are experts. Try to get a spectrum of various folks or various experts. And even if they are an expert, not necessarily in that field, but they kind of know about the field and they have the right kind of thought process, go ahead and get their feedback. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be your choice and your perception on how you're going to act on it or change from it. And, more inputs is better than, one or two inputs, right? So try to get a broad spectrum of that and really understand where everybody's coming from. And then kind of build your decision based off of that.
Something we've talked about before is, privately, is the value of establishing kind of an organic connection around doing this. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. Here's a way I would recommend to people not do it. Don't cold call, randomly drop in on a vice president and stop in and say, hey, what do you think about me?
Yeah, probably a bad idea.
You can do that, but I'm not sure what kind of reaction you're going to get, how authentic the feedback's going to be. As you mentioned, they're going to be like, okay, this is odd, a little bit of a trap, as opposed to finding organic ways to have a conversation and while you're there gathering the feedback, right? So I think there is a little bit of an art to sort of getting that in to receive the feedback. Now, if you have no organic connection to that vice president, it might be difficult to pull off. So you might start with the smaller fish and work your way to a spot like that. Whoever that influencer is, though, finding an organic connection.
I mean, ultimately, you should be getting feedback from folks that you have worked with. So just tie it to that, right? Yeah. Let's say you were working on a pitch for a certain new product or something like that, and maybe you gave the pitch to the vice president and it went over well, right? Excellent, nice job. You could still go back and talk to him or her and say, hey, I know this meeting went successful, or at least it seemed like it went successful. I'm always trying to improve. Is there anything you saw that maybe we could have done better?
Yeah.
Is there something that maybe we were missing? Is there something that maybe we were less prepared for?
Yeah.
Get the feedback, and to me, that's an organic way to kind of tie why you're there and what you're looking for, and based on that feedback. I mean,
it makes it easier for the person to really. What you're trying to do is get authentic feedback from people, right?
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult to do, to get people to really tell you what they think, especially if it's critical. It's way easier to say nothing. So you have to start mining this. You have to figure out ways. And it does make it easier to get the feedback from someone when you're coming in with this organic approach. That's been my experience, at least, is if I can have that organic connection point or mechanism. And your example is great. That's exactly what I've tried to do or one good way that I've said, okay, because you think about, maybe you're doing a presentation in a room full of people. They're not going to give you super critical feedback if they're nice, right? May be like, they may say, I've been in meetings where I think, this presentation is terrible, but I'm not going to raise my hand and be like, you guys should take all of this and put it in a dumpster fire. I'm not going to say that because I'm not a jerk, but if you come talk to me, I still won't say that, but I'll say some version of give you the softened version.
Right.
If you come in and I can tell you legitimately care and want it, right? Now, if you just do a drive-by and say, what'd you think? I'm probably going to give you a partial answer. But if you did reach out to me and said, hey, can I get 30 minutes, and doing exactly the approach you said, that feels like you're putting the time in and you authentically want it. Now I owe you.
Let them prepare for it.
Yeah, I agree. Then I owe you, and I'll think through and I'll process, right, what might really help you.
And it also helps, whenever if you did set up that meeting and you went and talked to them, that you come with something that you saw that, hey, I think I could have done better here. And if you kind of open with that to say, hey, this is kind of what I'm seeing. I feel like I was nervous in the meeting. I feel like I was kind of hesitant on the first couple slides. Did that come across? Could you tell that I was nervous?
Sure.
And you kind of lay the first card down to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm really here to try and get stronger here, and that should kind of extend that olive branch to say, hey, please, this is what I'm here for help. So help me out.
Yeah, you want them to be prepared. You also need to prepare yourself, right? There's an element that
Absolutely.
You need to be prepared as you're going in to do this. It's one thing to be in a meeting and you're getting feedback, and this kind of fight or flight adrenaline rush kicks in, and then the common response would be defensiveness, right? Yeah. It would be the walls go up. I've done this. I've been in meetings where I was not expecting to get blasted, and then I'm getting blasted not by one person, but maybe by 5. And I realize, I thought this was what we were going to get together and help each other. This is an intervention. I did not anticipate this. This is a mob coming after me. Got it. Now, I think the way I approach it now is just to sit back, control your emotions. So we talk about emotional awareness on the podcast. That's where really you need it. Control your emotions. Control your heart rate. Relax. This doesn't kill people, right? No. You just stop and go, okay. I had a boss that we both know that I learned a lot about this from, because he was a judo master, jiu-jitsu master, right? And one of the things I really enjoyed watching with him was things like this didn't rattle him. Never rattled him. He did not get rattled. And I remember talking with him about it one time, and he was like, you've got me pinned, but I'm going to get you. Yeah. There's no sense in getting upset. It's just you don't get rattled. You just go, okay, all right, well, I'm going to process this and think about this.
I think that is a judo thing they teach, is that any extra ounce of energy that you waste only works against you. So if he's saying, I'm not going to give you any response at all.
Yeah, and he was so stoic, and he came across, and I realized later, he's just clocking. He's sitting there thinking, he's processing, and he's thinking.
He's blocking.
And he's coming through. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to armbar you. I don't think he was thinking that. But I did sit there and go, man, that's a really good lesson by itself to slow down, calm down, control your heart rate, and think and process, and remind yourself that what you're getting is gold. Now, it may not be the best feedback. It may not be the feedback you like, and it may not be truthful all the time. But it's hard to get that feedback when you're getting it. You have to. There's almost a mental preparation that you have to get your brain into the right state to go, this is okay. This is good. This is valuable for me. I want this.
Yeah, regardless of if you agree with it or disagree with it, it's their perception. And the only way it wouldn't be their perception is if they're trying to be malicious towards you, which
that's right.
Probably stay away from those folks. You would have a good indicator if that is one of those people. But they're not meaning harm or bad intentions to you. So just take it and try and make it constructive. Understand where they're coming from, and if there's something you don't agree with, maybe ask to clarify.
Yeah.
Ask, okay, well, I don't quite understand why you think I'm in this, why you think I acted like this was bad. I think this was a good move, and this is why I thought it. Is there a reason why maybe I'm missing something?
Yeah.
And then ask them to clarify.
And you'll have cases like that. Well, before I give a case, I'd like to hear yours. Have you had a case where you got feedback and you go, that's totally wrong?
I would actually say it's that same manager that you're referring to. He was a sharp guy, and he still is a sharp guy. And I had asked for his feedback, and there was a new job opportunity, and I kind of wanted his thoughts on it. Right? I was like, hey, I'm thinking of taking this job. What do you think about it? And after telling him, he immediately says, nope, that's not you. That's not your job. You don't. That's not how you think. You think more like an operations person, and that's not an operations person's job. Not to say you couldn't do it. This is words from me. Not to say you couldn't do it, but I don't think you would be as happy in that position as you would be in a position like an operations manager or what have you. And at the time I was kind of like, who's he to say I can't do something? And but come to find out, after some self-reflection, I do kind of always revert back to an operations mindset. And that's probably just, the engineer in me or something like that. But he was absolutely right. Mm. And so now I've kind of maybe realized that, and I can account for that as I move forward through other roles, other projects. That I realized that, hey, that's actually a strength of mine now. Yeah. I should try and
lean into that. Yeah. That's a good example. So you, in your case, you're told feedback, you go, there's no way that's wrong, and then later you realize, okay, it's probably correct.
He had me pegged.
Yeah. I've got plenty of cases like that where I heard feedback, I go, you're crazy, and I just toss it to the side. And then years later, I go, I guess I am that way. And I think there's tremendous value in knowing and understanding that. And I think this is the reason why you should be pursuing feedback. Because otherwise, how would you ever know that?
You wouldn't.
Because you were already entrenched in who you are with your own unconscious bias of yourself.
You'd probably eventually find it out.
Yeah.
But now you know it sooner.
That's a great point. So it's one thing to find out things reactively. I really like to find out things on my terms.
Yeah.
Right? I'd really like to. Would you like to be at the finish line of a project and realize your weakness caused a certain problem or failure? I don't.
No way.
I want to know that before the thing starts, right? I want to know. And I think, let's unpack that a little bit. When you talk about knowing yourself, one of the values is being able to surround yourself with people. Once you come to the realization that I'm wired this way, right? And I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I think I'm stealing it from something from one of John Maxwell's books, which is, and you've heard me talk about it before, if you're a 2 at something on a 10 scale, if you work real hard, you might get to 4 or 5, and no one cares. There will be no line out the door for a 5. You're still middle of the pack, and nobody cares. But if you're a 7 and you work real hard, you could potentially come to a 9, and people will stand in line for that, right? So it's good to know that, because if I'm a 4 at something, I have no intention of spending. I may need to do that on a cab. I'm not suggesting that I'm going to delegate everybody wash the dishes and take out the trash. There's a certain amount of things you just got to do. Mm-hmm. But if I can surround myself with people who are good at those things, I'm going to be way better off from a team perspective. What about outside work circles? Is there value to that?
Absolutely. It's definitely less formal. Less
is it harder?
You can call it forced.
Yeah.
Is it harder? Probably not. It's probably easier. I go play golf tomorrow, and I can tell you that some of my buddies are going to call me out on something.
Yeah.
And I'll take it and it's like, well, yeah, maybe they're right, but no, maybe they're wrong.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of getting real-time feedback right there, because they don't, they're there for your best intentions, and so they're trying to help you.
Yeah.
So just, you wouldn't be offended if your buddy tells you, some negative feedback. So absolutely, get feedback from your friends, your family. neighbors, anybody that you interact with outside of work is absolutely of value, because that still comes back to kind of your behavioral mindset.
Yeah.
And, that's really half the battle, at least.
I think there's something to be said when I got feedback in the workplace in an area, and I went through a phase where I collected feedback intentionally. I said, can you give me my top 3 strengths and my top 3 weaknesses? And I had a sampling of 5 people in the workplace, 5 people outside, just different realms of my life. Oh my gosh, was that painful. It was just painful. Every time I'd be like, you're a liar. You don't know. I wanted to be like, oh yeah? Well, you do this and this and this. And that's okay. I had to go back to my previous comments and control your heart rate, relax. It's okay. It's going to help you. But when I started getting that feedback from people when I saw common feedback from the 3 different circles that I ran in, my work life, my nonprofit life, my for-profit life, and you could see and you could connect the dots from each one and be like, okay, I might disagree, but clearly I'm wrong. These people all saying the same thing. Yeah. It's hard to argue with that straight data right there.
You're
right?
missing some data point in your head somewhere.
That's right. That's when you really have to adjust yourself, and then you can tell that you definitely need to make a calibration and a change. Right. Yeah. So I think there is value in reaching out. I would be cautious and careful about thinking through who those people are that you get feedback from, but it's okay to get it from anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if they don't know you, right, and they've not connected, you just have to account for that. It's something you just have to filter.
You have to take into account how this person knows you, where they know you from, what type of interactions you've had with them, and then just use that as a weighting factor or some type of way to calibrate that feedback to try and understand, okay, they see me as this, and it's probably because of, X, Y, and Z. Whereas this other person would see you as this other thing, and it's because of A, B, and C.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind in order to calibrate it.
Yeah.
What that feedback really is meaning.
Yep. I've had feedback in the past where I've sat and listened so I'll maybe divulge a little bit about myself. I'm more like a player's coach. I don't, that's just more my style. I'm not the dictator style where you're going to do this and here's the rules and that's it, get out of my office. Much more player's coach style, which is, it's good and bad. Players coaches can be soft at times and can allow some slips to things. So I've had to get better at that. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is they're often easy to work for, usually. And so knowing that about myself, I was in a meeting one time where I got feedback that I was hard to work for. And I thought, that's interesting. And then I started looking into it, and I thought about it a little bit more, and I realized, okay, they don't know me at all, and I know they don't know me at all. So where is that coming from? Right? And then I realized, okay, the person that they do know is over here, and they are exactly that way. And I realized, okay, I'm getting like a perception by proxy kind of thing where, okay, I assume you're like this person. And I say that not to say that the person was wrong. It was just, it was good to filter through it and realize that, okay, that's where that's coming from. So I need to brand myself a little bit differently and maybe be a little more cautious and separate myself a little bit from that it's just good to be aware.
Yeah. You
filter that feedback.
You kind of probed and said, okay, this is where they're coming from and this is why they think that.
Yeah. And I didn't argue with them.
Yeah, for sure.
Why?
There's no sense in it.
There's no sense in it. Because if you argue and get defensive of the person, then why are they going to share feedback with you next time?
They're not going to help you next time.
I'd rather hear the perception, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you, once you've gathered feedback, let's say you've got a project you're working on and you want to get people's perception of it. You've gone around, or just for yourself. Maybe you go through a cycle every few years and you're going and gathering feedback. And you've got some from the 3 or 4 different circles that you operate in. How do you zoom out and kind of piece these things together? Do you have any kind of process?
This and it kind of comes back to that calibration to say, okay, well, this coworker or this equal peer thinks like this, and it's probably because that they are only seeing this piece of the pie, and this section manager is seeing it in this manner.
Yeah.
So he's kind of calibrated in this, and then the vice president that I talked to, she sees it like this, and they're all coming at it maybe at the same problem, but all from different call it success criterias or viewpoints of what a successful project is, and trying to figure out where that overlap is between all three is where I'll try to calibrate and land to say, okay, how do I make sure that we can win at all three of these? And sometimes you can't, obviously, but you try to just kind of calibrate all three of those, or all however many viewpoints, and piece them together.
All right, Rodney, what about cases where someone's giving you feedback and it is totally not solicited? You didn't want it at all, and you're getting hit with it.
Oh. So, I'll say, normally you're just kind of, you would kind of brush that off and say, oh, thanks, I wasn't asking for it. But I do have, I got a case. So, when I was younger, I used to be, I used to always kind of provide inputs on things that maybe I knew better, or I would see someone make a wrong statement, and they would always make jokes at me. Oh, Rodney's right, and
you would know it all, Nate.
Yeah, there you go, know it all, Nate. Yeah, that's a probably good name for it. And I was, but it doesn't matter. And I would correct folks, and I would say, yeah, well, no, this is really how it is, and someone kind of pulled me aside after that, after one of those cases, and she said, that's great, Rodney. You were right. What got better after that? And at that moment, it kind of clicked, and I said, okay, that was feedback I wasn't asking for, but she's absolutely right. And from then on, I said, okay, now for that case, it was more of a pick your battles, or let's make sure you only give feedback or ask for stuff that's going to be of value. And so I took it with open arms, and I've changed to that to this day.
Well, that's a really good example. So a couple things that I take from that for people listening, which is, one, you're going to get unsolicited advice, and again, control your heart rate, relax. Yeah. You could be getting something positive and good out of the deal, so don't react. Right.
It was honest feedback.
Yeah. And some people are just characterized by being overly critical. So when I go through the filter process of feedback myself, that's something like, we were talking about process. I don't have anything formalized, but when I am getting a lot, or I'm really thinking about it, I will put it in an Excel form or something on a piece of paper. Or I love whiteboards, my favorite. I'll put it up and I'll rank things. And one of the things I would make notes is that this piece of feedback is characterized by somebody that's being overly critical. So I'm not discounting it completely. There's probably a figure of merit of every piece of feedback, but I'm probably going to I'll take that one with a little bit of a grain of salt. So sure. You're going to get some of that. Don't react to it. You're still getting free feedback. You're welcome. But also, when you think about how you like to receive feedback, and as you're going through this process of getting feedback, it's going to change how you give it and how you give feedback to others. And if you're the grammar police, or if you're know-it-all Nate, and you're constantly correcting people, that's not an approachable quality for a leader. That's not somebody that people want to necessarily be around. I don't want to.
No, yeah.
I don't want to be around those people.
Want encouragement.
That's right. If I'm getting corrected all the time. No, so you almost have to decide, all right, is this really important enough? Mm-hmm. I don't want to say something. So I think that's an interesting, it's a really good example to give, yeah. All right, Rodney, we've covered a lot of why a person should care, the details of how they can organically go make some connections with people. Is this something somebody should be doing every week?
No.
If you want to go into a deep depression.
No, and honestly, I think it depends on the person. You could break it into age groups, and I think 30, 40 years ago, you'd have, yearly reviews, and that was the only time you talked about it. Mm. But there's companies out there now that have it every month, have it every quarter. And so I think it really comes down to how often do you need to have it in order to make sure that you're still getting value from it. Yeah. And at the same time, making sure you're not putting a burden on the folks that you're asking. Yeah. So it's somewhat of a fine line of when and when you need to do it, but you just got to kind of read your audience, understand where they're coming from, and honestly, just make sure you're still getting value out of it.
As a general rule of thumb, you need to be having some kind of conversation with your supervisor twice a year. I would recommend, and at a minimum, and I, if you can do it quarterly, it's extra, right? I think you do it all the time, it will wear you down. Which brings me to maybe my final point that I'd want to get something else.
Yeah, so I think the formal ones, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a formal review, it definitely needs to be twice a year.
Yeah.
But if there's one-off topics, hey, on this project, or hey, on that presentation, or hey, on this thing you're working on, and you wanted to solicit 3 minutes of feedback, go for it.
Yeah, maybe one other point to make is the timing of feedback is critical. Whether you're giving negative feedback or pursuing feedback, the closer you can get to near real time, the better, because our memories work that way. Our memories, we lose track of the details. And so if I'm sitting in a presentation watching you give a pitch, and I can say, hey, Rodney's going to get way better if I can talk to him about this. The closer I can get to that, the better. That right after the pitch or something recent, especially depends on the relationship that we have, I would give that. But if I wait and 2 months later, it's like neither of us are going to remember that. So the closer you can get to, which means pursuing the feedback closer to real time is way better as well, right?
Yeah, it helps pull that time lag in tighter.
Yeah. The one last thing I want to leave with people, and then I want to get to kind of what you would tell your younger you. What would you whisper in your ear to help you remember? What is that piece of little detailed minutia that if you'd whispered in your ear and you'd be like, oh, okay, that would have unlocked my ability to go pursue feedback. But one point I want to make before we get to that, which is when you go through this feedback process, and I encourage everybody listening to go do this because it's going to make you a stronger person, a better person, okay? It's going to hurt. Before you do that, I want you to do this for me. I want you to write out the things that you're good at. Focus in on your strengths, the things that you know you're good at first. I have a folder in my inbox that I call the refrigerator. And it's, you remember when you were a kid and you brought something home and your mom was proud of you and she put it on the refrigerator? That's what it is.
All right.
Some people will call it their affirmation file.
There you go.
You're good enough. You're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. You need to have but write that down, because I'm telling you, this is going to be a beatdown for you. It's going to be a good beatdown, but it will be a beatdown. So I keep a folder of anytime you get some kudos or something positive that's good for you, because we don't celebrate enough. We're constantly working on what's next and what's bad, and there's so much negativity out there. Go make that list of things that are positive for you. Put them on your refrigerator, or put them in a folder on your computer, or put them someplace. When you're having a bad day, because you're going to have one after you start going for this feedback, pull that up and remind yourself that, you know what, you're actually pretty amazing. There's a lot of positives going on right there, and you're going to get better, right? So do that for yourself before you go into this process. Okay, off my soapbox. So I want to come back to you. If you had a chance to go back to younger you, what's the thing you're going to tell yourself when it comes to pursuing feedback and getting better here that would have helped you?
Well, I mean, I would think I would still, start off with, hey, you're not always right. You definitely, you know a lot of stuff, you can learn a lot of stuff, but you're not always right. So leverage what other folks know, grow from it. And like you said, it is going to sting. So, I would tell myself, hey, it is going to hurt, it is going to sting, but, just grow from it. And I can maybe close with one piece of feedback that I actually did get. It was from a vice president. Well, she's a vice president now. I don't know if she was at the time. But she told me that, don't sweat the small stuff. Everything's small. Right? So after that, I said, okay, basically, never get riled, never get upset.
Yeah.
Everything's always going to be okay. And
it's not personal.
Just grow from it.
Yeah, it's great. Rodney, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. Want to encourage people out there to think about this, follow those notes that we talked about. Go think about pursuing feedback. It hurts. It does, but trust me, you will come back with stories and you will be telling me how you're so glad that you did. So, Jamie, tell me about the refrigerator.
Man, when our kids were younger, the refrigerator was just overrun with less than great artwork from our kids.
And they would compete over space.
Everyone thought theirs was better. It's just newer. It's not better.
It's just like us as humans, though. We love to pursue the positive feedback and we like the affirmation. We don't like to pursue the negative.
Right. But I mean, I think that we learned a lot from Rodney in this episode in the importance of getting that negative feedback, because that's what we grow from.
Yeah. Prep yourself, though. Prep yourself. You're going to go in and it's going to sting, but it's good for you. It's good for you. I'd like to hear from you. Let us know if you've learned something from us. If you have a horror story or a positive story otherwise of feedback, we love hearing those. So have a great week, folks.